It's great to see everyone here and to be back in this place after 2 years. A huge thank you, first of all, to David, who's been working tirelessly to organize this, and where everything grew from, again, he was going to hang out with Pedro. That was like, what, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? And then suddenly everybody's flying around the world to get over here. And to our events team, who really pulled a ton of this together. So thanks to all of them. One more thing, because David is handling most of the logistics for the entire time, help him out. So there will be a bunch of times when he will want to do something, and just don't let him. Ask him what he needs, and then do it. So it's pretty great to see so many people from many different working groups. It really takes a village to create open source. So it's really amazing to see so many faces, old and new. And David asked me to talk about why this stuff matters. I wonder if we can get the lights down. Is that possible? So that everyone can take a nap and it's OK. Yeah, will do. David asked me to talk about why decentralizing the web and why working on internet infrastructure is important. And we're going as a species through a very weird time. Things 50 years ago were very different from today in terms of how humans operated. They didn't have these crazy supercomputers in their pockets. They couldn't look up everything. They couldn't talk to their loved ones at a moment's notice. They couldn't call each other. They couldn't coordinate at that degree, and so on. And things are going to be way different 50 years from now in our lifetimes, which is crazy to think about. It's really hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. And so what we got out of the crazy technology explosion that we're riding in this crazy rocket, with the internet, with the advent of the internet and the advent of computing, we got this incredible applications platform that we can just write a bit of code, ship it through the internet, and then grant people superpowers. It's pretty crazy, the ability of you to sit down and think about something and say, wouldn't it be cool if people could do X, and then just start writing it and then ship it, and now suddenly you've patched the OS that people deal with, and suddenly now people can do X. It's pretty amazing. And these are pretty old graphs. I guess this goes to 2015, but the internet users are growing a lot. This is mobile phone users. I think it's mobile phone for subscriptions, not actually users. There's a lot. That's more than people on the internet. Yeah, so mobile subscriptions to outnumber the world's population. So that means many people have multiple, but still a crazy projected growth. There's also an old graph, but it's not the same all over the world. There's a lot of places where this isn't the case, and we're in this weird time where we are so powerful that now that we've acquired these crazy superpowers and this amazing application platform, and a lot of people in the world are not. And this is a crazy divergence that either we worked on fixing now, or it's going to be pretty bad for a lot of people. And so we have this amazing nervous system that we've built over the last 50 years or whatever. But it could fragment. So this is, even though it feels so permanent and so such a big part of our lives, and how could the internet ever possibly go away, it could actually fragment in a very serious way. And we're already seeing the beginnings of nationalization of the internet, where different nations have different kinds of main platforms that they go to, where all of the social networks live and so on. And so this amazing communications worldwide sharing thing is now getting split. Now, this could get worse. So in any kind of intense global conflict, if something like that happened, very quickly, a lot of countries would cut lines, because the possibilities for all kinds of cyber warfare are huge. And so you wouldn't want to, countries wouldn't want to allow all sorts of traffic from other potential combatants. And so right away, we would split this amazing communications network. And so think of all the people around the world that you have built relationships with and you communicate daily with, or on a weekly basis or whatever, and suddenly not being able to talk to them anymore, just kind of overnight kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing that's at stake. So luckily, though, code is data. And what this means is that we can, again, grant superpowers by just writing software. And in some cases, you can use software to bootstrap hardware. So this is what's, for me, the most interesting thing of the Bitcoin explosion is that a bunch of software with incentive structures, which are kind of like human software, the Bitcoin network bootstrapped this amazing, massive network of computers just doing this crazy hashing thing, right? So that's kind of useless work, but maybe you could do something better with that. Maybe you can get connectivity to Spark all over the world. So at PL, we think a lot about this pipeline of going from ideas through specs, through code, getting to computers, and then becoming like getting superpowers. And a lot of what we do, a number of things have gotten all the way over here, and people are using it, but not really end users yet. Our stuff is not that polished. And so we have a ton of stuff in the ideas and spec, or ideas and code parts. And if we want to have a real difference in all this world, we have to land a lot of stuff. We have to get it sifted through a lot of the pipeline. So I think, think about that during the week. But again, with the code is data idea, this gets really cheap. So imagine if you had to build the entire telephone network, like Bell and a bunch of other telecoms had to do. Or imagine you've had to build the internet from scratch. That's really expensive, all tons of hardware. Now we can just primarily focus on software and have huge impact in the world. So think about platforms. So I think that we got really lucky with the web, where it emerged out of science groups so it was military funded, but science groups that had a lot of good aspirations for the world. And the structure for the internet got laid out before commercial interest came in. So we lucked out here because it kind of locked in to be open. That's not happening in mobile. So mobile is a pretty locked down platform, and you can't easily ship a lot of stuff. IoT is even more close than that. Although I guess technically, with all the vulnerabilities, it might be more open because you can't like ship anything. But what's going to happen with things like machine learning and AI and so on, and VR? These probably are going to be super closed platforms. So this great idea of the internet being open and that everyone can participate in it and everyone can write whatever they want and ship it to people is getting clamped down and shut out. And this is a real fight. Like, we have to work on protocols and principles and movements that try and keep it open. So another thing that's happening is that we are, as part of the internet, we have created digital selves. A lot of our selves is now expressed through computers in some way. And so our profile is there, and our social networks are there, and our main means of communication is there. And so that has a whole bunch of implications, both from I'm not going to belabor all the social networking stuff that you already know well. But there is a real problem here with all of this data being gathered by parties who want to exploit it. That's an issue. And we've just seen the tip of the iceberg of this kind of stuff with the Cambridge Analytica things and so on. That could potentially get much worse. So there's a whole problem of how do we allow people to have these kinds of things securely in a way that they govern how that information gets shared and distributed. So self-governance is a big deal. Also, permanence. So a lot of this stuff, people's expressions and people's, think of all of the amazing things on YouTube being wiped out potentially in the future when YouTube changes its business model and doesn't want to monetize that stuff anymore. So if we don't archive all this stuff in a way that's high fidelity, then we're always just going to have this weird distorted copy. With software, we should be able to just archive things forever. Digital identity is going to be a big deal. Won't go into that too much, but I think we're getting to a point where we're using these devices to identify ourselves in a whole bunch of situations. And again, that's completely owned by other parties. So if they want to lock you out in some way, they can. So we need a very strong push towards self-sovereign identity. There's really good projects out there. It's just they need effort. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if like you controlled the data of your applications instead of the other way around? That'd be nice. So we really live in this kind of world where these groups have the data, and then sometimes one of them like disappears, and you get a notice telling you, hey, you got like 30 days to copy all your data, and you get this like dump of text files, and now you have to keep. What do you do with that? How is that useful, right? So imagine if these applications worked a lot like your text editor, which was written 30 years ago or more, and just always works, and always works. There's patches and so on, and people working on it, but you can grab a copy of the text editor, keep it on your computer, and it works, and like you can still use it. So why, something as complicated as a text editor like VI or an operating system like Emacs, why can't you have that why can't you have like something as simple as like SMS messaging or like internet messaging be archived in the same way and on the same level of control? So we are kind of victims of the Web 2.0 world where it was hyper-centralization in like the addressing caused all of these groups to make it really there was a big difference between how easy it was to set up your own web server and host your own data versus just rely on a third party to do it. And so we got this like really fast aggregation of everything. Nowadays we know how to do the other stuff easier, much easier. And so we may be able to turn back some of that tide. So yeah, let's go towards this kind of thing. There's also the problem that a bunch of information gets destroyed or lost by when somebody like just changes a link somewhere. Suddenly tons of things like break. Whoops. But in some cases, there's real censorship in the internet. And there's real groups trying to destroy information. So in the past, we've had these kinds of things happening. My not favorite, the anti-favorite, the burning of the library. This kind of stuff can happen again. So today, the majority of our science and all our science data and all our social networks and all of our messages and so on is stored digitally in pretty unsafe media that if it isn't powered consistently and moved to new media, it just will automatically degrade and it won't be readable anymore. So this is kind of like the future of all of the digital data unless we find reliable ways of archiving it and safeguarding it. So paper is surprisingly more durable than hard disks. So let's come up with ways of dealing with that. And at the same time, maybe not archive everything. Maybe we shouldn't be archiving everything. Social data is kind of toxic in that it's important to people and their networks, but it can be misused so horribly that there's real risk of keeping this stuff around and archiving it for a long time in ways that other bad parties could use. So think of how bad groups in the 40s used like census records from 10 years prior to hunt down people. Like imagine what they could do with the treasure trove of information that Facebook has. Like all of your thoughts, all of like the machine learning based analysis and like psychological profiles of people. Like a bad government, a bad country could like sort by like likely to oppose our positions and then just get the top 1% of those people and ship them out of the country or worse. So that's like possible with the information, right? So this is why this kind of stuff matters. In a broken internet or like in a fragmented internet, then these kinds of abilities of being able to have communication and collaboration platforms that work offline becomes a really big deal. If most of your applications break when you can't talk to the backbone, imagine if like something happens to the internet, suddenly nothing works. And so we have this amazingly good period of time now where we could be working on making this kind of stuff work really well, like just being able to have things like Google Docs and messages and so on. Think of like the top 10 applications you use daily and make sure that those are offline capable, that you can use them and you can control the data and you can control the code so that if the service provider disappears or you just can't talk to the service provider anymore, you can still use the stuff. You can still use these applications. Yeah, just whenever you work with your computer and so on, just think about what fraction of your daily life is mediated by the internet in some way, like directly, or in the background. Like if you go have food somewhere, probably all of the logistics and supply chain management stuff that got the food to your table, a lot of it is probably running on Internet things. So let's bring it back. So that's a lot of problems. Like, David asked me for, like, why is this important? Well, that's why. Let's remember that we are in Lisbon and that we can have a lot of fun, and that it is, throughout history, it's been groups of people who really care about others and who see kind of the potential problems and see a potential better future that actually make that happen. So, and it doesn't take that many people. Surprisingly, things like the internet, things like computers, things like the personal computer were built by very small groups of people. In many cases, at least the software part of personal computers was designed at Park by like less than 100 researchers, which is crazy to think about. All of the stuff that like seeded Apple and Microsoft and so on, built by less than 100 people. So yeah, let's decentralize the web. Matt came just in the nick of time, and there's a bunch of stuff that you know about. Let's try and work on these problems, and I wanted to take stock for a moment on all of the different things that we are doing. There's really a lot. We probably generate more projects per day than we have bandwidth to think about, let alone work on. And so there's things like GoIPFS, JSIPFS, libpeer-to-peer. That has like 20 small projects. PeerPad, IPFS Companion, which is awesome, by the way, like being able to just like more and more, it just like in the background does its thing, and it's great. IPFS Desktop, is that the current name? And things like multi-formats, IPLD, like the research group, the CRDTs event that we're going to have tomorrow. There's really a ton of stuff going on. And so I think I want to urge everybody this week to just kind of take all of that stuff and put it away and just focus on one thing that you care about. Like just find one or two things that you think, oh, this is broken, this should be fixed. Or, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could make X? And like just focus on that one thing, work on it and polish it, and get it to ship. So I think we are really good at starting things and working on things, but not as good at like polishing and shipping really reliable stuff. And that's a transition that we need to go through as a whole group. And so these are, I sorted those by most commented on. I almost did it here. But things like this. And so think of the Portuguese galleons setting off to circumnavigate the world a long time ago. From here, actually, like probably, or from Porto, I don't know. From here, right? Yeah. So if they were full of holes, they wouldn't have gone. So let's think of that these days and really get to really reliable, polished stuff. And so that I want to, again, place the emphasis on that and the focus on that this week. We have a little time, 2-3 days. But that's plenty of time to work on one component and ship it. Something like a Bluetooth transport for libp2p. Like that might be cool. So there's like a new era of exploration, and let's make sure that when the new people in Mars get there, actually have internet applications they can rely on, as well as we can here. Cool. And I think, wait, is this? Oh, man, this is a GIF. No. No GIF. That's a bummer. I'll just show it to you. Yeah, whatever. I'll send it out later. It's a GIF of a plane being built. And yeah, that's it. There are more GIFs.